mentoring can facilitate your talent management strategy. To those of you who are at our last webinar or both our previous webinars, thank you for joining us again, and we hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Now, I'm Crystal Ding, and I'm bringing this webinar to you along with my colleague, Judy Corner, Director of Consulting Services. Over the past 20 years, Judy's designed and delivered mentoring workshops, mentor-mentee training, and a program implementation process that she successfully implemented at a wide range of organizations. Today, we're also bringing you our guest speaker, Margaret Crawley, founder and CEO of MA Crawley Enterprises, and an expert on the topic of diversity. Previously, Margaret was Diversity Manager of Future Energy Holdings Company, as well as Executive Director of the Texas Diversity Council, and we're very grateful to have Margaret on board with her expertise. Now, today, Judy and Margaret are going to talk with you about using mentoring to facilitate inclusion within your diversity initiative. They're going to share some of their Mentoring for Diversity success stories and give you some food for thought on how mentoring can generate or enhance the success of your own diversity initiative. First, you'll be muted during the presentation for optimal audio performance. And during the presentation, we'll invite you to participate in a number of polls which will pop up on your screen when the time comes. Also, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the discussion by typing them in the questions window at the lower portion of the GoToMeeting toolbar. Now, these questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. At a break, Judy and Margaret will address your questions that you've submitted throughout the presentation. Feel free to submit additional questions at this time. Now, after today's presentation, you'll receive a recording of the webinar. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Judy, who's going to tell you a little more about how mentoring facilitates diversity and inclusion. Judy?
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that very much. And also, I'd like to add my welcome back to everyone who has joined us on our previous webinars, and welcome back to our third in the series. In our previous webinars, we have looked at how mentoring really supports a lot of your organizational and human resource initiatives that you have. Our first webinar had to do with how to implement a successful mentoring program. Our second one was how mentoring is used to accelerate onboarding, and of course then today we're talking about how mentoring for diversity and inclusion helps to align that diversity initiative with bottom line results in doing that. One of the things that we'd like to let you know is if you did not attend our first two webinars on implementing a successful mentoring program or how to accelerate your onboarding program, then we invite you to go to our website, which is info@ensala.com, and we will be glad to send you a recording of either one of those webinars. We do have some future webinars that are going to be coming up. We have one in November and one in January. The specific dates on those have not been determined yet, but we will let you know that as quickly as possible. And also, in addition to that, if you have some specific topics around mentoring that you would like for us to focus on, please send us your ideas. We have already received some ideas in which some individuals would like to hear more about how technology supports the mentoring initiative. We have suggestions on mentoring and leadership development, mentoring and high potential. So again, if there is a specific area that you'd like to vote on, that you would like to see a future webinar on, please let us know. The types of things that we're going to cover today are really how inclusion leverages diversity and impacts your bottom line. And the way your Mentoring for Diversity maximizes this inclusion is by making diverse talent visible to managers and to leaders and provides employees with access to development opportunities. We're actually going to show that to you in a couple of diversity success stories that we have that are really going to look at both of those issues. In addition to that, we are going to give you information about how technology supports and facilitates successful mentoring for diversity initiatives as they move forward. What I'd like to do first is to give you a quick overview about Ensala. We are a leading global provider of mentoring, career development, career transition, and talent management solutions. organizations of all types and sizes. We work with organizations, again, of all sizes. We work in just about every industry you could think of, governmental, not-for-profit, organizational, for-profit, and so on. So we have a vast experience in a variety of different kinds of organizations. And we do that through our software as a service technology and an array of consulting services that we offer. We look at these as very specific customizable solutions. They're very flexible to assist organizations in meeting today's talent challenges that they that they are facing. We invite you again to go to our website to look and provide more information about Ensala at www.ensala.com, and also to visit our very specifically focused website around mentoring, which is at mentoringtalent.com. And for those of you that are very specifically interested in mentoring and diversity, you're going to find on that website a link to how mentoring supports diversity as you move forward. To give you an idea, one of the things that I had mentioned previously, and we continue to think about at Ensala, is what we call complete solutions. And the way we do that is that we provide consulting services to an organization because we want to make sure that the processes and methodologies that you have in place are going to really make you successful as an organization. And then we help you with program implementation and evaluation to make sure that you're continually going to be on track. In addition to that, we have content and research, and we are continually supplying our clients and the society as a whole with the research that we have done around mentoring, how it's implemented, all of the different ways in which it's used, and the success story. And then, most important, in addition to that, we have supporting technology that makes sure that any of your talent management solutions are going to be easily managed, that you're able to track results, and you're able to administer those talent management programs. The kind of things specifically in the area of mentoring that we kind of feel makes us unique is the fact, number one, we have a proven methodology that's based on over 20 years of mentoring experience. We have taken this methodology and we've used it in practical application inside of organizations. It's been tested. It's been tried. We know it works. We've used this process, and implemented it in organizations, in all sizes, in all areas, in all industries. We've used it in both national, local, and international organizations throughout the world. And we have then taken that methodology that we tested, we know works, and then what we did is we connected that with 15 years of implementing talent management software solutions. So it's a great pairing and it's a great solution, combined solution. In addition to that, we have very specific, dedicated subject matter experts around this area of mentoring. And as I mentioned before, we do work around making sure that we keep up with the latest research, the latest methodologies, the latest uses of mentoring, and supply that information to your organization. We also believe that our solutions are sustainable and scalable. It's important that the solutions that we provide to an organization are sustainable. We don't want you a month from now or a year from now having to feel like you have to look for something else. We're talking about sustainable so that many years from now, you really are looking at a solution for your talent management area that is sustainable and scalable on any of the areas that have to do with your talent management needs. Our guest presenter, Margaret Crawley, has a background in experience and expertise in business operations, talent management, corporate diversity, and Margaret and her organization look at areas around diversity training, strategic diversity consulting, and diversity program implementation. Margaret has provided a tremendous amount of research to the presentation today. So at this point in time, what I'd like to do is to turn this over to Margaret. Margaret?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all of you, and I hope this greeting is inclusive of all of the time zones that are represented by the participants in this webinar today. And Judy, thank you for the brief introduction, and I would just like to add that M.A. Crawley Enterprises consists of a team of professionals with 20-plus years of experience, and we have provided services in the areas of diversity training, diversity consultation, and how to establish and implement a diversity initiative. Now, to set the tone and the focus for this webinar today, I'd like to present a recap, if you will, of two definitions of words that are quite familiar to us. They are diversity and inclusion. Diversity is still a definition that many of us still don't feel that we can adequately define it to suit our purposes. But I think this definition is one that is generic enough that most of us can identify with it. Diversity refers to the endless dimensions that make people unique. These dimensions range from diversity of gender, race, and culture to diversity of skills, communication styles, perspectives, and ideas. Now, diversity in and of itself does not yield the desired state that we hope to accomplish. It's the effective management of diversity that accomplishes the desired state, which is inclusion. Inclusion is the process by which organizations take full advantage of their diverse talents to drive business operations and profitable bottom-line results. With that said, let's take a look at the impact of inclusion on the bottom line. Inclusion creates revenue gains and cost savings through enhanced employee productivity that involves reduced turnover and absenteeism, improved engagement and retention because now employees believe that the organization really cares about their contributions, and talent can be developed internally and thereby minimize the external talent searches. And finally, maximized coverage of all talent processes that include recruitment, talent development, performance management, and succession planning. Now, at this time, Judy will come back and give you a success story about mentoring as a strategic diversity initiative. Judy?
Thank you, Margaret. We're going to look through a couple of success stories as we move forward, and what we're going to talk about on how mentoring achieves maximum inclusion, as Margaret has defined it. We're going to look at making diverse talent visible to managers and leaders, and also providing employees with access to development opportunities that they normally wouldn't have had access to. Our first story has to do with a specific manufacturing company, and employees within the plant weren't being promoted as quickly as other employees that would say in sales and marketing or finance or other areas of the organization. And what they were beginning to see was that these employees that were within the plant had a turnover rate of 23% compared with 7% turnover rate for other parts of the organization. And we all know what a turnover and a turnover rate that high really costs us. So what they were able to do as part of their solution was they created a mentoring program that was implemented to drive career development for selected employees. Now, the selected employees that we are talking about are those individuals that were a part of that plant and manufacturing environment. That's the way the mentoring program began in doing that. Now, the individuals that were picked to be the mentors actually came from various departments and job functions. Some of them did come from the manufacturing floor and the production floor because some of the individuals in the plant actually wanted to further their career in the plant, in the manufacturing environment, and in processing. And the other mentors, though, came from other departments. They came from sales, marketing, finance, and so on. And they were the ones that were had volunteered and were qualified to be mentors. One of the ways in which we qualified them and selected them was based on very specific competencies that individuals that were in the plant environment indicated they wanted to learn. But there was something else that we wanted to make sure that these mentors were qualified and that they had specific competencies around certain cultures. Now, these cultures that we're talking about were not only around the population, which was highly Hispanic and American Indian, but around those particular competencies, but also individuals understanding the competencies and the culture that was a part of a plant environment. Because many times those individuals who were in sales or marketing didn't understand what the cultural environment was in the plant. So what they needed to understand was not only specific cultural differences or specific cultural competencies around a culture, which was Hispanic or a highly American Indian, but what they also wanted to do was to understand what it's like to work in a plant environment. So we actually chose those mentors, and then what we did was match them with specific mentees, and then the mentors and mentee partnerships worked on creating very specific mentoring learning plans that were targeted toward those specific goals of the mentee. The results were dramatic. Within 6 months, individuals began to move into more senior positions both in and out of the plant. And again, it wasn't just moving out of the plant, and it wasn't just moving into management. So we're talking about more senior positions, but it wasn't necessarily management. There were individuals within the plant that actually moved into some processing areas and some areas like that. And then there were other individuals that moved into areas such as sales, marketing, finance, and so on. One of the best things that came out of this was a comment that came from one of the mentors, and it was really great when they said, you know, we've been hiring externally to fill vacant positions within our particular organization, and talent has been right here in our organization and in the plant all along. And they were really kind of surprised, and it was kind of like, geez, I can't believe this is going on. The other thing that happened was that when this particular program was in full swing, they had a new CEO that came into the organization, and the background of this CEO came from a company where they didn't have mentoring in the past. And so his position was, you know, I don't think we really need to have this mentoring program in place. You know, I think we can get everything accomplished we want to without mentoring. We actually had individuals come up from the plant floor. We had individuals that came from sales and who had been the mentors, and from finance and all the areas saying, no, you can't do this. This program has got to continue because we're seeing results. We are actually seeing things that are happening that didn't happen before. And most dramatically, what they were able to see is, you know, that turnover rate of 23% that existed before, that had dropped to 12%. So again, we were able to see real world, real bottom line results in what we were doing here. Now, one of the things, excuse me, I apologize, that happened is we used technology to actually be able to go through and to enhance the success of this program. And one of the things that I mentioned before was that each of the participants created their own mentoring learning plan. This mentoring learning plan was online, and it allowed both the mentor and the mentee to put together this learning plan, to discuss it, have it in one place where they could always get to it and look at it, and to be able to then begin to measure their results in what they were doing and moving forward. In addition to that, we were able to go through and do surveys, and we were able to create reports that gave us very specific information on the feedback that was coming from individuals as to the success of the mentoring program, and then progress that people had towards their goals and objectives that they had set, which not only enhanced the department and the individual that they are working in, but it enhanced the organization as a whole. So what I'd like to do now is to turn this back over to Margaret. And Margaret, if you'll walk us through our second success story.
Thank you, Judy. That was a great story, an example of how technology enhances the success of a mentoring program. Now, I'd like to share a success story of my experience with mentoring. that involves a female who worked for an energy company. She was looking for access and opportunity to be successful through upward mobility. She was an HR generalist and was looking for developmental opportunities. Her performance level was outstanding, and her supervisor recognized that and wanted to just do some informal mentoring while looking throughout the company to see what opportunities existed for formal mentoring. In the meantime, she was also looking for training opportunities that would give her more information that would help to facilitate upward mobility. And as a result of taking advantage of training that she found internally and externally, and the mentoring opportunities that were made available to her, her performance level improved significantly, and she started her climb up the rungs of the corporate ladder. She progressed over a period of about 10 years from an HR generalist position to vice president of HR for a major business unit. Now, you're probably thinking, what was the challenge? It was a twofold challenge. Women employees failed to reach managerial positions in key departments. That was the first one. The second one was there was a need to extend developmental opportunities to women without making male employees feel excluded. Now you're probably thinking, what was the solution? How did we solve that problem? Well, there were two internal mentoring programs that were implemented. One for all employees, which was called group mentoring, and one for selected high potentials. The group mentoring program basically focused on those soft skills. Some of the things included in that program were the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Assessment and the coaching that went along with that, interviewing skills, and developing an award-winning resume. On the other hand, the high potential program was called the one-on-one mentoring, and it involved nominations from the executive leadership team. The mentees in this program were paired with mentors that were members of the executive leadership team. Now, in addition to the two internal programs, an external mentoring program for leadership development was implemented for women in high potential groups. And then women who were paired with leaders from organizations within the same corresponding departments were able to gain a different perspective on leadership. So, what were the results? The results, I'm proud to say, were very, very positive. Male mentors within the internal program gained skills to become better managers of women employees with heightened sensitivity to competencies for leadership in all employees. Many women who participated in the external mentoring program attained leadership roles. And as a result of that, women across the company could now aspire to top management roles after witnessing the others' success in the initiative. No longer did leadership roles for women appear to be almost totally elusive. Last but certainly not least, the company culture became much more integrated and inclusive for all employees. Now, at the time the two mentoring programs I just shared with you were implemented, there was no technology available other than like a spreadsheet. Technology would have provided great efficiency in the reporting and management of the program. So now Judy will come back and expound on how technology can enhance your mentoring programs. Judy?
Thank you, Margaret. Excuse me, please. Yes, technology definitely plays a prime role in implementing your mentoring initiative. And one of the very first ways that it does that is making sure that you've got a good application process and to find out, individuals, what their intent is about participating either as a mentor or a mentee, and then finding out information about individuals through a profiling process. So as mentors and mentees are matched and paired, that they understand some of the background about the mentor or the mentee that they're being matched with. One of the other things that I heard Margaret mention was around skills and competencies and assessments. There are many assessments that we provide in our technology, and one very specifically around specific competencies that a mentee may need to move forward in their career and that a mentor may have. The whole idea behind gathering this information ahead of time is to make sure that you don't have just a good fit between the mentor and mentee, but that you've got the best fit. And so the matching and pairing piece is incredibly important to the mentoring initiative as you move forward. We talk to organizations and we hear stories that it is taking them hours or weeks to be able to match and pair their mentors and mentees. And what we can do with technology, and an organization can cut those hours and weeks down to moments if they have good information that's building into that through the application and through the profiling process. One of the things that we also heard within an organization was not only did they spend hours doing this, but they were a little concerned that, you know, at the end of the day, we have spent so much time doing this, and everybody's tired. You know, sometimes we're not absolutely sure we're giving some of those final mentor-mentee partnerships the best match in doing this, where with an online technology tool, you have the information at your fingertips, and you're able to do that matching and pairing and really feel like you have got a good matching and pairing and that you have going to have a successful partnership for both the mentor and the mentee. So we're hoping that you've been able to see with these two success stories that how important it is and how you can maximize your inclusion by making diverse talent visible to managers and leaders and providing employees with access to development opportunities and individuals that they normally would never have access to in doing this. When we roll out a mentoring initiative, we feel that it should be rolled out based on a very specific methodology in doing this. You don't want to just roll this out. You want to make sure you really have a good methodology to do this. That ensures your diversity and inclusion goals will be met as you move forward. The methodology that we use and we suggest is a 4-part methodology and in 4 phases of plan, implement, evaluate, and manage. Now, the first phase is the plan phase. And what we find many times is that organizations just want to jump in and get mentoring going. And what we're saying is this is a little bit of that 80-20 rule. You want to make sure that you have spent a good time planning for your mentoring initiative, and then you go into 20% on the implementation. The types of things that we help organizations with around that planning stage are what we call, first one is the MORE workshop. The MORE workshop stands for Mentoring Organizational Readiness and Effectiveness. And when you're looking at this, what you really want to find out is no matter what the focus is that you want to accomplish with your mentoring initiative, but especially if the focus of your mentoring initiative is around diversity and inclusion, that you really have looked at how are we going to tie this to our organizational goals and objectives around diversity and inclusion? How are we going to measure them? What do we perceive as some of the advantages and challenges that are going to come up for the mentor, the mentee, and the organization as a whole? How would we meet those challenges? These are important elements that need to be thoroughly investigated before you roll out your program. In addition to that, we want to talk about those things that need to be in place that make a successful mentoring initiative overall, no matter what the focus is in doing that. This really is your rollout plan. And again, you want to make sure it's effective before you start. The second phase that we believe is a part of our methodology is the implement. After you've done your planning, then you want to start implementing. And this starts with good communication and information programs. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about mentoring is the good news about mentoring is that it's thousands of years old. And the bad news about mentoring is that it's thousands of years old. And the reason we say that is because there are many, many historical perceptions and misperceptions regarding what a mentor is, regarding the role of the mentee, regarding what mentoring is overall. Now you add to that the types of things that Margaret talked about in the very beginning, which had to do with, making sure that everybody really is clear on these definitions of diversity and inclusion. And it's really important that you have got a good, solid, consistent communication and information program in the very beginning. In addition to that, you want to offer training for your mentors, your mentees, and one of the things that we do, we also suggest you offer training to the managers and supervisors of those individuals that are going to be a part of your mentoring initiative. The reason that becomes important is because they need to understand what their role is and how they should support this mentoring partnership. And in addition to that, supplying training for your administrators. Your program administrators are going to be the individuals that people come to and are asking questions. So make sure they've got all the answers. Make sure they understand everything that's going on so that they can, again, give good, consistent answers. The third phase that we believe is a part of the methodology is evaluate. This is where you want to make sure you've got good evaluations and surveys. We can supply evaluations for mentors, for mentees, for managers, the organization as a whole. This is where you're gathering all that information to make sure that way back in the planning phase, when you set your goals and objectives for your mentoring initiative, how are you doing? How are you progressing towards those? And this is what you find out in your evaluations and surveys. In addition to that, the last phase is probably one of the most important, and that's your manage. The planning is the 80-20 rule. Then manage is the one that begins to get you all the answers that you've met your plan. In the technology phase, what you're able to do is, again, do that very timely and efficient matching and pairing process, having an application process that leads to the intent and the focus of individuals who want to be mentors and mentees, making sure they've got a good communication portal and that your mentors and mentees have access and can easily communicate with each other. And then, of course, your tracking and reporting. Everybody is going to want to know how your mentoring initiative is moving forward. So finding out who needs to know what do they need to know, and being able at a moment's notice to be able to, at your fingertips, have specific tracking information and to be able to report that in a very easily viewed format. The kinds of benefits that we see in having a proven methodology in place to plan, implement, evaluate, and manage is, number one, it gives employees access and a safe environment to ask questions and discuss issues. One of the things that employees love is being able to have that one-on-one with someone, because it also gives them a network of valuable contacts for ongoing career opportunities. And I'm sure everybody that is participating today has either a personal story or they have heard of someone who has made the comment that, yeah, I had a mentor years ago, and we still keep in contact. So again, those network and valuable contacts are very important. In addition to that, what it also does is it gives the employee individualized attention, and it makes them feel the organization really cares about them. It's not something that they're a part of, just treated as a number as they move forward. But the organization is saying, we're going to give you one-on-one or very focused attention, even if it's in team mentoring, on your needs. This shows them they really care. Then also, in addition, employees are able to build skills and career confidence very quickly on the job. The great thing about mentoring is that it's on-the-job experience, and it really can take skills learned and put them into immediate reinforced activities. For your talent and diversity functions, it ensures you've got maximum inclusion with this diversity initiative. All the things that we've talked about up to this point in all of your communication, your training, your managing and tracking and reporting gives you that maximum inclusion. You're able to track your mentor-mentee partnerships and know that you've got full accountability of what's going on, and also realizing that the types of objectives they're working on, that the participants are working on, are helping your diversity program as you're moving forward. You're also able to align individual goals with workforce requirements. So it not only helps the diversity function and making sure that there's an alignment there, but also an alignment with the overall organizational goals. I apologize. Not sure what happened. Sorry about that. Okay. For the organization overall, what you're able to do is align the diversity initiative with organizational objectives. You've got a direct alignment there in what you're doing. You're able to measure the success efficiently and effectively, and many times organizations do not think that you should be able to measure mentoring, or you can't measure mentoring, and you can't measure diversity, and we're saying you can do both in what you're doing. It enhances employer branding to attract diverse talent. One of the things that becomes important in employer branding is it's not just your logo. It's how you treat your people. It's not just what you put on your website. It's those kinds of things that from individual to individual that tell stories about this is a great place to work. You can have the greatest website in the world and all kinds of great quotes, and all it takes is one employee who does not believe this, or not just one, but it takes several employees to say, you know, this organization doesn't really care about me, and you've lost your branding. But when you've got a mentoring and a diversity initiative within, it really gives the organization that focus, and it gives the individual the feeling the organization cares about me, and that will radiate out to the employer branding. And that then will allow you to engage and retain that top talent from all backgrounds, all knowledge fields, and all experience fields. So the kind of things that we would like for you to do next and to think about is, number one, learn more about the benefits of mentoring for diversity. And we can provide you with information on that at our website, and also by sending your questions at the end of this webinar, as well as sending questions to us at our mentoring talent or our info@nsala.com. In addition to that, evaluate, is mentoring really going to work for your organization and their diversity initiative? And again, our MORE workshop can help you in looking at those issues and how that will enhance your diversity initiative. Determine whether your organization is ready for mentoring overall, especially as it works through your diversity initiative, and then develop a plan for readiness. So again, that you're looking at that 80-20 rule, and you really have looked at a good plan before you roll out your mentoring initiative as we go forward. So at this time, what we'd like to be able to do is to open it up to your questions and let us answer those. So Crystal, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Margaret. That was fantastic. And now we're going to open it up to questions. And this is a time where you can ask Judy and Margaret, experts in the mentoring and diversity spaces, anything you like. So I do encourage you to continue submitting your questions. If we don't get to them at this time, because I know that some of you have to get off the call, we'll address them individually with you. So there have been a lot of questions, Judy and Margaret, around the issue of generating buy-in and communicating the initiative. I think that in terms of diversity initiatives, communicating the initiative and its goals and objectives is one of the most challenging things in terms of developing a rollout plan and implementing the program. Now, a particular question for you, Judy, is surrounding your success story. How did you communicate to Hispanic and American Indian participants that they were selected? Was it because they were part of the plan, or was it because of their culture? How did you go through that process of selection?
Okay, the process, good question. The process of the individuals who were involved, they volunteered. They weren't necessarily choosing, because we believe that in a mentoring initiative that people need to want to be a part of it. So what we did was there was a very specific communication that went out to the individuals on the plant floor and telling them that this particular mentoring initiative was going to be on, what we had hoped to accomplish with the mentoring initiative, the kinds of goals and objectives we hoped to accomplish with it. And then what we really did was we ask those individuals who wanted to be a part of that. Now, by doing that, there's a commitment level there because they were going to have to spend some extra time on doing this. So we wanted to make sure that individuals who were really committed to do this would be a part of it. So we actually set that up and we asked them what they wanted to do and who wanted to be a part of the mentoring initiative. Now, I will tell you that as we rolled this out in one of the first phases, not everybody was included, and there were two reasons for that. Number one, there might be a situation in which we didn't have a mentor to match them with, and number two, the numbers began to get so big that during the first phases they were kind of trying to get their arms around it. We really had to keep the number down to about 50 pairs in what we were doing. So, but you know, the overall answer is that we communicated this specifically in what we wanted to do, and we asked for volunteers.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. And Margaret, you know, the same question really applies to you as well in a slightly different context. In terms of generating that effective communication program, what was it that you did within your initiative that you think generated the success of communication for you?
Well, when the programs were rolled out, or really before they were rolled out, there was a communication to employees that these programs existed and that they had been developed for specific purposes. And as I mentioned earlier, the group mentoring program was for anybody who was interested in being developed. And there was an application process in place. And the only real limiting factor for participation in that particular program was the availability of mentors to participate and mentor the mentees who applied to participate in the program. Now, the one-on-one mentoring program was for high potentials, and again, it was based on a nomination process from executive leadership. But again, the executives, from a business perspective, had an idea of the kind of employees they were looking for and the competencies that they needed in those employees. And so that was a consideration in the selection process for the high potentials to participate. But it was broadly communicated to all employees so that they understood what the two programs really focused on, so that employees could make an informed decision about their participation.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Another great question that came in was, what about larger programs? What if someone or an organization is worried about reverse discrimination by targeting populations, and they want to know if they can have multiple programs running at once, and if they want to open up the program to tens of thousands of employees eventually? How is this made easier with technology? Judy?
Well, there's a couple of things, Amy. Believe me, when you start getting into larger programs, this is definitely made easier with technology. I can't even imagine how you would do it without technology and doing that. But as far as being concerned about very specific groups and being some kind of reverse discrimination, one of the things that we did with one organization, and actually we were invited in through a diversity task force, and this was a very long time ago in which there was actually a very different focus on diversity. I mean, it really was around gender and ethnicity and those types of things. And one of the things that I mentioned to him was, I said, you know, if you start doing this and you only look at one population and keep everybody out, there's going to be some backlash, and we felt there would be. So what we did, because it was very important to this group to have something in place, is we suggested what they do is they start out with what we call phase one. And phase one, what they were basically saying is we really want to concentrate phase one in this particular area of the organization. Now, if you hear the phrase, this is going to be phase one, then what that leads you to is there's going to be a phase two. And they had to agree that it was going to be opening up to other groups, because you really can't ask someone to be a mentor to an individual that might hit a very segmented population, but yet tell them they can't be a mentee and they can't have a mentor. So you can get into some problems there. So by looking at it from a phasing standpoint, and again, we're going to kind of concentrate on this group to begin with in phase 1, but the plan for, quote, phase 2 was then about 6 months later after that. So they were able to achieve their goals from the diversity task force standpoint and still be inclusive. At that time, inclusive wasn't even as much of a word, but and be inclusive of others in the organization that were looking at development to be able to do that. So that's kind of the first part of the question. And then, yes, you can roll this out to larger populations again. And we have done this in organizations that, like 37, 50,000 individuals involved and throughout the world. And I don't see how you can possibly do that without having a technology resource to do that.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Now, this question is for both of you. We've gotten a number of questions inquiring about how to best qualify mentors. That's one point. And also how to create these best matches from a diversity standpoint. Now, I'm sure both of you have your views on this. So, Judy, can you elaborate on best practices for matching and pairing and qualification?
One of the first things we believe you need to have in place is a role profile of what it takes to be a good mentor and also a good mentee. But speaking in terms of the mentors, you wouldn't ask anybody to take on a job or a role they weren't qualified for. And so one of the things that we know is that it takes very specific skills to be a good mentor, very specific in a personal and oral communication and those kinds of skills to be a good mentor. And so we believe that mentors should, anyone applying to be a mentor, should understand what that role is. They should understand what those responsibilities are, and they should understand the skills necessary to do that. In addition to that, it's not just the skills to be a good mentor, but if you're focusing this on your diversity initiative, there may be additional skills that are a part of that in competencies, such as early understanding diversity and inclusion, and giving them specific training on ways in which they want to address specific topics or issues with their mentee in doing that. So again, you want to make sure that everybody that applies to be a mentor understands the role and has the skills and competencies to do so. And then as far as the matching and pairing goes, if you have done a good assessment of your mentors and you've done a good application process of your mentors and your mentees, and what it is they want to accomplish is specific, and I underline that word. Find out what a mentee wants to accomplish from a specific and clear standpoint, communicate that, and then that helps tremendously in your matching and pairing. You want to make sure that the needs of the mentee are not nebulous and kind of, fuzzy. They need to be specific.
Great, Judy. And what about you, Margaret? Do you have anything to add to that?
Just as a precursor to the pairing, I really like the advantage that your tool offers in terms of providing a profile based on the competencies associated with the mentees who are interested in participating in a mentoring program. Because I think by focusing on competencies that are related to goals and objectives that the organization wants to achieve, there is less subjectivity associated with participation if it's tied to competencies and as they relate to the mentees' goals and objectives. And I think that's critical to allowing mentees to participate in the program and also having them appropriately paired with a mentor. And to Judy's point, I think it's extremely important that both the mentee and the mentor are trained, that there is training for both of them so that the relationship can be as successful as possible.
Thank you, Margaret. That was fantastic. And that just about wraps time up for us. I know that you guys must have other appointments right now that you're heading off to. So, Judy, do you have anything else to add before we close out?
No, just that I hope that we have been able to impart to individuals how important it is to tie mentoring to your diversity initiative and what more you can get out of it by tying mentoring to your diversity initiative and being able to have tools to manage that initiative, how much easier it makes, and, you know, just being able to provide that inclusion that you want to be able to do.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for attending the webinar today, and thank you for submitting all your great questions. Just as a reminder, we will be addressing each of you shortly with an answer to your questions or further discussion of the matter. And before you head off this webinar, once you click off the webinar, you will be directed to a link to our very short ending survey. Please complete the survey as it will be very valuable to us, and we really appreciate it.